It was a quiet afternoon. Hannah was out running errands, and I was half watching a football game when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door and saw Emma standing there, arms full of a few stray bridal decorations, I smiled without thinking. "Hey," I said, "wedding prep overflow?" She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Something like that," she said. I stepped aside to let her in, and she placed the box down on the kitchen table, but she didn't leave. She lingered, nervously twisting the ring on her finger, the engagement ring from Mark. She started, then stopped, chewing on her bottom lip. "I really came by to talk to you." Something in her voice made me tense. "Sure. Everything okay?" She hesitated, and that silence said everything before she even spoke. "I need to tell you something," she said, voice cracking slightly. "Something I should have said years ago." I crossed my arms, a sick feeling blooming in my gut. "Emma, what is it?" She stepped closer, too close. "I've always liked you," she said, tears brimming. "Since high school, before Hannah, before all of it. But you picked her first, you looked at her first." I stared at her, stunned. Memories flickered, the way Emma used to laugh a little too hard at my jokes, the way she always sat closer than she needed to, the lingering glances I had written off as nothing. "You were supposed to be mine," she whispered. "Emma," I said carefully, warning in my voice, "you're getting married. To Mark." She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "I don't even know if I want to anymore." The room seemed to shrink around us. I should have walked away, told her to leave. But part of me, the part I'd buried under years of marriage, responsibility, the quiet what-ifs, didn't move. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, her voice small. "I know this isn't fair to you, I had to tell you. I couldn't go into my marriage still pretending. I should have said no, should have turned around and told her to forget it, to pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, I stood there, silent, frozen, and in that silence, she stepped forward, closed the gap, kissed me. Her lips brushed mine, soft, trembling, and for one horrifying moment, I froze. Then reality snapped back like a whip. I pulled away sharply, breaking the kiss. "Emma, no," I said firmly. "You're getting married. And I'm married to Hannah." Her face crumpled, raw and humiliated. "You have to go," I said, my voice rough. "Before something happens we both regret." For a heartbeat, she just stood there, broken, trembling, and then she turned and rushed out the door, the box of decorations forgotten on the table. I stood there for a long time after she left, the door half open, the cool air rushing in, trying to erase the heat and guilt still lingering in the room. A few minutes later, Hannah came home, bags in hand, humming to herself as she pushed the door fully open. "Hey, babe," she said brightly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my face. "I'ma just drop some stuff off." Hannah smiled and leaned up to kiss me on the cheek, oblivious to the chaos that had almost destroyed everything. I kissed her back, longer, tighter than usual, swearing silently that I would never let anything come between us again. Days passed, but the memory didn't. It gnawed at me, the look in her eyes, the way her hands shook, the weight of everything she'd left unsaid for years finally crashing into the light. I told myself to leave it alone. I told myself it was over. But late one night, lying awake beside Hannah's sleeping form, the urge was too much. Maybe I owe her a real conversation, I thought. Closure, clarity, something. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my phone and opened our old group chat, scrolling until I found her name. I hesitated, then typed, "Hey, are you okay?" The message hovered there, unsent, for a long, painful second. Then I pressed send before I could change my mind. The 3 blinking dots appeared almost immediately. She was there, waiting. Then her reply came. "I'm not okay. I don't think I ever was." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I didn't know what I expected, anger, regret, silence, but her words cracked something open inside me. I typed, "Do you still want to marry Mark?" Another pause, longer this time. Then, "I don't know anymore. After the other day, it just feels wrong. Like I'm lying to everyone." I squeezed the phone tighter, feeling the weight of her sadness through every pixel. I started to write something stupid about how time heals, about how she should think about Mark, about how what almost happened didn't mean anything. But I stopped. Because it had meant something. It had meant too much. Instead, I typed, "I care about you, Emma. I always have, but we can't destroy everything because of one bad moment. You deserve happiness, so do I, and it's not with each other." I sent it. It felt final, heavy, like dropping a stone into deep water. Her reply came slower this time, almost hesitant. "I'm sorry, for everything. I'll figure it out." I stared at the screen long after the conversation ended, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. I turned off my phone, rolled over, and pulled Hannah closer to me, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. Whatever Emma decided from here on out, my decision was made. One chose my wife, I chose us. Some moments almost change everything, but only if you let them. And I wasn't going to. Not anymore. Lying there in the dark, phone still warm in my hand, a memory blindsided me. Back in high school, Emma was untouchable, the golden girl. The one everyone knew, the one everyone wanted. She floated through the halls like she owned them, laughing, shining, perfect. Me, I was just the guy who blended into the crowd. Not invisible, but not remarkable either. I never dared to ask her out, not once. She was out of my league, the kind of girl who dated the football captain or the guy with a new car, not someone like me. So I never tried. I set my sights somewhere safer, somewhere I actually had a chance. Hannah. Hannah, with her quiet smile and nervous jokes. Hannah, who looked at me like I mattered when I felt like no one else did. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't the girl everyone chased, but she was real. And she became my whole world without even trying. Maybe that's why Emma's confession shook me so hard. Because it forced me to face a truth I hadn't admitted even to myself. There had been a time, long before Hannah, long before life got complicated, when a part of me wanted Emma. When a part of me believed I wasn't good enough for her. And now, years later, she stood there telling me she had always wanted me, too. It was cruel in a way. Fate's sick joke, showing me what could have been after I'd already built a life with someone else. The guilt settled in deeper the longer I lay there. It wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about Emma. It was about Hannah, about everything she trusted, everything she believed in. Hannah and Emma weren't just friends. They were like sisters. Since high school, they'd been inseparable, finishing each other's sentences, celebrating each other's victories, crying through each other's heartbreaks. I had seen them together 1,000 times, laughing until they couldn't breathe, leaning on each other when the world got too heavy. Hannah trusted Emma the way family trusts family, and she trusted me the same way. If she ever found out what happened, even if it was just that one stolen moment, it wouldn't just be a betrayal of our marriage. It would shatter everything she thought she knew about the two people she loved most. The weight of it crushed me. I had always thought I was a good man, loyal, honest, but standing there in the kitchen that day, I had faltered. I had let a kiss happen, even if it ended quickly, even if I stopped it, and that was enough to ruin things beyond repair if the truth ever came out. The worst part. Hannah would never see it coming. She trusted me completely. She trusted Emma completely. She would never, in a million years, suspect that either of us would cross a line. And now, just by staying silent, by carrying this secret alone, I was protecting myself more than her. Was that love, or cowardice? I didn't know anymore. I told myself it was a terrible idea. I told myself it was a reckless idea, but the pull of it, the aching void that Emma had left in me, was too strong. We'd agreed not to meet. We'd agreed to end things, or, at least, try to. But after that text, after those words, I wasn't sure if I wanted to let it end. Not yet. I had told myself it was over, but in the silence between me and Emma, I realized the truth. I was lying to myself. I messaged her again that night. We shouldn't do this. But I can't stop thinking about you. The dots appeared immediately. Then the reply, I feel the same. I need to see you. Just once more, please, before I marry him. I could already hear the desperation in her words, even through a text. Before I marry him. It was always about that, wasn't it? The fear of losing what never truly was. I should have ignored it. I should have shut it down right there. But instead, I typed, a hotel. halfway between us, tomorrow. I just need to see you one last time. I stared at the message before hitting send, the weight of it settling deep in my chest. I wasn't a man who ran from confrontation, but this wasn't confrontation. This was something worse. This was temptation. The next day, I told Hannah I had to work late. I kissed her goodbye, and she smiled, completely unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. I drove to the hotel with a sick knot in my stomach, my hands white-knuckling the steering wheel. There was a part of me that screamed for me to turn around, to make the right choice. But the other part of me, the part that had been bruised by guilt and curiosity, urged me on. And so, I parked in the dimly lit lot and walked into the lobby, feeling like I was wading into my own destruction. Emma was already there when I arrived, standing by the elevator, looking both familiar and foreign all at once. She looked like she always did, beautiful, vulnerable, too beautiful. But there was something else in her eyes now, something raw, like she was standing on the edge of something she couldn't pull herself back from. She didn't speak as I walked up to her, but I saw the flicker of hope in her gaze, the unspoken question, is this really happening? I hesitated. For a second, I was back in high school, the boy who would have never dared to stand this close to her. The boy who was too unsure of himself. And yet, here I was. Worse, I was making the same mistake again. The same mistake that had haunted me ever since I left her behind for someone I thought I loved. The room was too quiet, the air too heavy. Every step, every breath felt like it was carrying me closer to something I knew would shatter everything. Yet I couldn't stop. Not now. Not after the way she looked at me. Not after all the unspoken words that lingered between us for years. Emma took a step forward, and I didn't move. Her hand reached out, trembling, brushing the side of my face as if to make sure I was really there, that this was real. Her touch sent a jolt through me, an electric pulse that made my heart race, my breath hitch. I could feel the weight of it all, the weight of her desperation, of my own desire. It was too much. I was too far gone. I don't want to be alone anymore, she whispered, voice breaking. I never wanted you to be out of my life. I can't just pretend this isn't happening. I looked at her, my chest tight, my hands suddenly shaking. There was a part of me screaming at myself to stop, to leave. But the heat of her body so close to mine, the scent of her perfume, the vulnerability in her eyes, drowned out the voice of reason. I reached for her, my hands hesitating for just a moment before pulling her in. Her lips were soft, needy, hungry as they pressed against mine, and I gave in. For a moment, it was like nothing else mattered. It was like we were back in high school, lost in a world where the consequences didn't exist, where nothing had changed. Her body melted into mine, and I could feel the years of longing, of unspoken words, building between us. She kissed me deeper, more urgently, her hands tangling in my hair. I pulled her closer, the room spinning around us, the need for something, anything, drowning out the guilt that tried to claw at the edges of my mind. We broke apart for just a second, both of us gasping for air, our eyes locked in a shared confusion of emotions. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice shaky, as if she knew this was wrong but couldn't stop herself. I need you. I felt that same aching pull, the same desperation to feel wanted, to feel something other than the suffocating weight of my decisions. But in the haze of it all, a single thought broke through. Hannah. The name burned through my mind like a cold knife. I couldn't do this to her. I couldn't betray her like this, not after everything. I pulled back abruptly, pushing Emma gently away from me. The space between us felt like miles, but it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. Emma, I said, my voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. We can't do this. She looked at me, stunned, as if she hadn't heard a word. The desperation was still there in her eyes, but now, there was something else, something darker. Hurt. Rejection. You're really going to walk away now? She asked, voice trembling, breaking with emotion. After everything. I closed my eyes, shaking my head. I can't. I won't. Her shoulders slumped in defeat, and I could see it, the breaking point, the moment she realized it was over. A month passed, and I tried to forget, tried to bury the guilt, the shame, the memory of what had almost happened. I went back to my routine, back to pretending everything was fine, but every time I looked at Hannah, I felt like a fraud. The weight of what I'd almost done was too heavy to ignore. But then, everything came crashing down. It was a Thursday afternoon when the knock on the door came. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it, expecting a delivery or maybe a neighbor, but instead, I was met with Emma's fiancé, Mark. He stood there, jaw tight, eyes blazing with fury. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low, as if he was barely holding himself together. I stepped aside, my heart sinking. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. "Mark, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my mind was racing. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed me a series of texts from Emma. My stomach dropped when I saw them. In the messages, Emma had painted a picture of me that was nothing like the truth. She claimed that I had made the first move, that I'd seduced her, pressured her into something she didn't want. She said I'd blackmailed her, that I had forced her into a hotel room and taken advantage of her. She told Mark everything, twisting the truth so thoroughly that what she described sounded like an entirely different man. A monster. "I don't know why she's doing this," Mark said, voice breaking, "but I know you're involved with her. And now my whole world is falling apart." I could barely breathe as he spoke, the walls closing in around me. I had no idea where this was going, how this had gone from a secret, one-time mistake to a full-blown, twisted accusation. Before I could speak, the door opened behind me. Hannah stepped in, her face pale, her eyes wide. She must have seen the tension, the fear on my face, because she immediately understood. But understanding wasn't enough. "Mark, what's going on?" Hannah asked, confusion mixing with dread in her voice. Mark didn't look at her. He held his phone out to her, the same damning texts. And when she saw them, everything changed. The color drained from her face. The hurt was instant. The accusation was all she needed. Her eyes snapped to me, filled with anger, betrayal, and confusion. "What is this? What did you do?" I began, but my voice cracked, guilt strangling the words before I could finish. "Hannah, please, it's not what it looks like." She cut me off. "So, you're telling me this is all a lie?" "That you didn't." She couldn't even finish the sentence. The hurt was so sharp in her voice that it cut deeper than anything else could. "I didn't do it," I shouted, desperation flooding my chest. "I swear, I didn't force her. I didn't." Emma's voice, suddenly sharp and cold, cut through the room. She had walked in behind Hannah without me noticing. Her eyes were red, her face flushed, but the look on her face was the same one I had seen a month ago, the same one full of anger and accusation. "Don't listen to him, Hannah," Emma said, her voice low but clear. "He made me feel like I had no choice. He pushed me. He trapped me. And now he's trying to act like the victim." Hannah froze, her gaze shifting between Emma and me. Her hands trembled. "Emma, is this true?" "I was just trying to get away from him, but he wouldn't let me go," Emma continued, playing her part like a pro. "He said if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd destroy everything. He said he'd tell Mark what happened. He said he'd—" She trailed off, wiping her eyes dramatically, as if the tears she shed were enough to convince everyone. I was paralyzed. I couldn't find the words to explain myself, to undo the damage she was doing. Because, for the first time, it was clear. This wasn't just a moment of weakness. This was her revenge, her way of making sure I was the bad guy, the monster she could blame for everything. Hannah's eyes never left mine. "Is this really happening? Is this true?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. It didn't matter what I said anymore. Nothing would ever be enough to fix the twisted narrative Emma had woven. The silence between us stretched, thick with accusation, confusion, and the kind of hurt I had never imagined. I had betrayed her trust, but this was a whole new level, a level I couldn't climb back from. Mark turned on his heel and stormed out of the house, leaving behind a broken Emma and a devastated Hannah. And as the door slammed shut behind him, I knew, in the deepest part of my soul, that nothing would ever be the same. The realization hit me harder than any accusation, any betrayal. Hannah hated me, and she fully believed Emma's lies. In the eyes of everyone I once trusted, I had become the villain in a story that wasn't even mine. I couldn't escape the reality of it, and worse still, I couldn't deny my part in it. I had invited Emma to the hotel. I had played with fire, thinking I could handle it, thinking I could control the situation, but I couldn't. I got burned, and I was watching everything I cared about slip through my fingers. When I finally confronted Emma again, there was no pretense. There was no trying to explain anymore. There was only anger, raw and unfiltered, and the cold realization that she had gotten exactly what she wanted. I was nothing but a pawn in her game. I stood outside her apartment door, fists clenched, the rage bubbling up, and I knocked hard. She opened it slowly, as if she knew what was coming. Her eyes were cold, emotionless, the mask she'd put on so perfect that I almost believed she was a different person than the one I had known. "What do you want?" she asked, voice flat. "You destroyed my life," I said, my voice low, barely controlled. "You tore apart everything I had." Emma shrugged, an almost dismissive gesture. "You did that yourself." I took a step forward, the anger pushing me, urging me to say everything I'd been holding back. "You lied about me. You made everyone believe I was some kind of monster, when all I ever did was make one mistake." She didn't flinch. She didn't even look guilty. Instead, she stared at me with that same cold expression, like I was a minor inconvenience. "You should have thought about that before you invited me to that hotel, before you wanted something from me." "I didn't want anything," I spat. I was weak. "I made a mistake, but you—" I stopped myself, my chest heaving with frustration. "You ruined everything. You twisted it all, and now you're just sitting here acting like you won." She took a step closer, her voice dropping into something almost taunting. "I did win, didn't I? You're the one who got burned, not me." I stood there, fists clenched, every word I wanted to say stuck in my throat. I had no defense left, no way to undo the mess I had made. And Emma knew it. She had already won. The worst part wasn't that I'd made a mistake. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing how much power Emma had over me, over my life, even without trying. And Hannah? She was lost to me now. She fully believed Emma's version of what happened, and no amount of pleading or explaining was going to change that. In the end, I had nobody left. I had earned this loneliness because, deep down, I knew I had chosen this path. I had invited Emma in. I had let temptation win. And now, I was paying the price. Emma and Mark got married. The day arrived, and it was everything I had imagined it would be, and nothing like I had hoped. The wedding was beautiful, of course, a fairy tale, in the eyes of everyone but me. Emma, glowing in a white dress, the kind that made it hard to remember the person she had been. Mark, standing proudly by her side. I wasn't there. I was crossed out of the guest list. I couldn't help but think back to all the times I'd sat in the front row, watching Hannah support her friends. She had always been there for Emma, even before me, the sister she never had. I had been the one who didn't value that bond enough. I had allowed myself to cross a line, to betray her trust in the worst way. One night, I checked social media again. I had tried to avoid it for weeks, but there was something about the wedding that still haunted me, and there it was. A picture of Emma and Mark, locked in a kiss at their wedding reception. And standing beside them, with a radiant smile, was Hannah. The maid of honor, the woman who had once been my everything. And it cut deep. Deeper than I had ever imagined.